The reading this morning are the words of the Reverend Carl Scoville, who is considered one of the granddaddies of this generation, the last, not even my generation, the generation before me, of ministers. He wrote in his essay called The Great Surmise, "At the heart of all creation lies a good intent, a purposeful goodness from which we come, by which we live our fullest, and to which we shall at last return. Our work on earth is to explore, enjoy, and share this goodness. Neither duty nor suffering, nor progress, nor conflict, not even survival, is the aim of life, but joy. Deep, abiding, uncompromised joy is our aim in life." Joy matters. It does. One New Age teacher tells us, in the month of June, joy and fun should be at the top of the list for higher vibration experiences of hope, enthusiasm, and inspiration. Surely, last week's service that was focused on the blessing of the animals invoked in us joy and fun, and so much more. I hope that you can all continue this higher vibration throughout summer. Many of our church-going neighbors will likely be reading psalms of hope and an upliftment, like the famous Psalm 100, "Make a joyful noise unto the Lord." And our first hymn today proclaimed, "Joyful, joyful, we adore thee." And in case you're wondering, the fourth gospel, the Gospel of John, is known to be the gospel of joy. The other three are the good news gospels. Most of the fastest growing churches today have upbeat services that increase the enjoyment of attendees and try to balance the sermon with enough hopeful messages so that their flock wants to return for more. Even Unitarian Universalists need a hopeful balance of addressing society's ills and offering and embracing solutions. We want to feel happy about our church experience, and this requires a little joy in the mix. Is there a difference between happiness and joyfulness? As Susan pointed out, there is, and I believe that one can help the other. Joy can help happiness. A couple of weeks ago, I set out to shop for a certain cake mix. Google said Target had this item. I was a bit annoyed, for I haven't been to Target for years, and recalled that the grocery section was clear across the far end of the store. I set out to hike to the other side. And suddenly, I stopped, startled by two huge, suspended, high in the air, color photos of a boy and a girl smiling and playing joyfully. Then I noticed that I was in the children's section. I found myself smiling, perhaps foolishly, certainly with abandon. I could barely tear myself away to search for my cake mix, which they didn't have. This image stayed with me for days. Even now I see it in my mind's eye. I said to myself, those kids weren't just happy, they were joyful. It set me to thinking about the difference between happiness and joyfulness, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. And anyway, the title of my sermon was due, so that's how come it's joy. And I just finished reading a spiritual teacher's summer newsletter that I quoted at the beginning. So what is the major difference between happiness and joy? If someone asks us if we are happy, we'll likely reflect on how satisfied we are with aspects of our lives, our relationships, our livelihood, our family, our health, our home, our church, etc. We might find it hard to say whether we're happy or not easily. It can be complicated. If I ask you if you're joyful rather than happy, that's much easier to answer because joy is an emotion. Most of us could go on and on about what brings us joy. We might say, joy is, for us, is a walk in the forest, or on a beach, or wandering through an art museum, or playing a favorite game with friends, or going to eat in a favorite restaurant, going to a concert, listening to birds in your garden, playing with a kitten. Experts have found that a focus on joyful experiences can greatly enhance happiness. One big reason is that joy brings us to the present moment, which is a more creative space, free of worry. Also, a person who is joyful tends to attract others who are joyful. The more we can be in a joyful space, the more our health can improve with natural beneficial chemicals exuded from the body. So the more joyful person is likely to be, over time, happier and healthier. Time for a humor break for all ages. Why was a teacher so happy to be working at a prison? She had a captive audience. And for the kids, and the kid-like adults, how do you make a squirrel happy? Act like a nut. The comedian said his jokes were like joy, easy to spread and hard to contain. Experts tell us that just focusing on joy brings us bursts of joy. And these bursts increase our happiness, not to mention our creativity. So convinced are they on the benefits of seeking joy that they have created a global research project called Big Joy, with capital J, capital O, capital Y, run by the Greater Good Science Center at the University of California, Berkeley. Anyone can take part in this, and more than 800,000 people across the world have done so far. It requires a time commitment of just 7 minutes a day for 7 days, with easy activities that studies suggest are likely to increase positive emotions. The premise is that we can work out what makes us feel good and do more of it. Micro acts of joy focus us on what is good about the life in front of us and how we can make it better, says Alyssa Epple, a psychiatry professor at the University of California, San Francisco, and who is a collaborator on the Big Joy Project. The Dalai Lama had also been consulted on this project and did advise adding a prayer to it. Some of the things participants were asked to celebrate was to celebrate something kind for others and tune in to what matters most to you. Alyssa wrote that next to her husband, she discovered that her chickens mattered the most. I think they must be a pet in her life. Then they were asked to take a test to reveal their well-being level. Most people scored higher than before they had participated in these activities. Alyssa felt happier after participating in the study. It is not easy for everyone to be joyful when life is simply too challenging with personal loss. A particular book caught my attention called Micro Joys, Finding Hope When Life is Not Okay, by Cindy Spiegel. She has had many tragedies happen in her life and coming all together: loss of brother, loss of mother, loss of someone else close to her. It caused her to write about how she looked at each day with a view to finding something meaningful that gave her joy. She became acutely more aware of her environment, like the sound of the birds on her patio, the incredible smell of fresh spices in the Indian grocery store, coffee grinding in Trader Joe's. You know that smell while it's grinding? The colors of flowers in her neighbors' gardens. She asks us to be more aware of the various environments in which we find ourselves each day and look for the beauty of sight, of sounds and smells, wherever you are. Micro joys enable us to see much more in our everyday surroundings, especially in the changing seasons. I don't know if you've ever been to the North Dartmouth Library. That's my local library. Our library in North Dartmouth was built, it's fairly new, with a natural landscape that you can see from all the windows and that changes with the seasons. Most of the walls are windows. At first, those of us in the book discussion group complained about the weeds. Later, because nothing is landscape there, from the moment you turn in, it's all you think, doesn't anybody mow this place? It's intentional. But later, where we used to see overgrown wildflowers and tall weeds, we now notice the weeds of the season. Weeds are plants you don't want, right? Yeah, they're just plants. And we find them now quite beautiful. I could hardly believe my eyes recently when, coming out of job lot with my bags full of low-cost cat food, I noticed that my car's right back wheel was lower than the left, noticeably. Yes, I had an almost flat tire. Lucky for me, I was only 2 miles away from the inspection station, and the mechanic was free. Gratitude flowed over me. I was fascinated with the speed and skill he used to unscrew the wheel, whip it out, pull out a very long nail from it, fix the flat, secure the wheel, and pronounce it good as new. Gratefulness is also important in joy. Next time, I'll pay more attention when the upside-down horseshoe with a question mark appears on my dashboard. I kept meaning to get the owner's manual out and look that up. Honestly, this study... This study of joyfulness had really gotten to me. You know, the more that you read about it, the more joyful you become. And so much of life becomes joyful. Talk about stress relief. There's the antidote. Cindy Spiegel's father was a complicated man, taciturn, demanding, but she came to appreciate him more by thinking, because of him, I am. Because of him, I am. It made me think of my own father. He came home one day and announced, "Okay, kids, we're turning over the lawn and growing potatoes. The company is putting us all on 3 days a week." It made me think of other things he'd done to make extra money in lean times. This was just after World War II, so, economies weren't booming across in Europe. He even pulled out his beloved rose bushes to make way for cabbages and carrots. This taciturn man had his good sides. Because of him, I am. That's a good thought to hold for the upcoming Father's Day week. So joy can be, in retrospect, memories, savoring the good and perhaps softening past harshness. This was a great discovery for me. Can it be that being committed to discovering or rediscovering the joys in one's life can be life-enriching, life-enhancing? Perhaps creating joy for others follows. It did for Cindy Spiegel. It changed her life. In the reading, the words of the revered and much-loved Reverend Carl Scoville assure us that joy is the purpose of life. The purpose. Perhaps that, in spite of being in a country at this time in history where leadership is focused on depriving ordinary people of the means to have abundance, we can still live out our principles in a way of creating a better world, a world with more joy, in our own unique Unitarian Universalist way. So may we be it.